Mr. Edmund Chua.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to ask the Shadow Minister for Trade and Industry on what does he classify as a necessity and what does he classify as a luxury. Where will the line be drawn when goods on the market are priced on a continuous spectrum? Rice imported from Thailand, US, Japan, as well as many other Asian countries show wide variation in price, and even the price of rice imported from the same country show variation in price as well. How much does the Shadow Minister's plans to spend on policing the discretionary tax such that wealthy Singaporeans do not benefit from it and that companies do not benefit from misclassification? What I have here is a report of the IMF that chronicles the amount of VAT frauds that goes on in the EU and how much they spend on policing it, and I hope that he will spend time to look at it as well. And would the Shadow Minister actually agree that all these savings can actually be used to fund social transfers for the benefit of poorer Singaporeans? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Shadow Minister for Trade and Industry.
Mr. Speaker, and members of the House, I'd like to firstly thank the Minister of Finance of the government for his pertinent questions. But before I begin, I'd like to firstly clarify that said proposed tax exemptions applies only to unprepared, unprocessed staple foodstuffs and non-durable consumables. And this is due to the fact that this contributes to a heavy weightage of the food category in a CPI index basket of 22%, according to December 2011 CPI calculations. Now, surely, I'd like to firstly define the fact, distinguish between necessities and luxuries, according to this question. Directly, necessities are simply regarded as foodstuffs that are necessary, absolutely necessary to maintain an equitable level of standard of living, whereas luxuries need not necessarily be. Excluding uncertain changes in consumption patterns, necessities in this context refers only to a set of base foodstuffs and staples with relative income elastic demand for the 40th percentile of wage earners in Singapore and below. And these mainly refer to autonomous foodstuff consumption. And in contrast, luxury foodstuffs in this context would refer to goods of a relatively income inelastic demand and which have individual induced consumption gradients of less than 0.45. The underlying principle here is that we'd like to achieve an equitable income distribution through indirect government policies. With regards to the Minister of Finance's questions as to how certain distinctions amongst goods of, I quote, incomes, different price spectrum, I like to say that the composite propensity to consume of different brands and types of foodstuffs of lower income earners could be coupled with the relative consumptions of different types of goods using real GNP figures as percentages. And this indicates more or less the majority or proportion of necessity foodstuffs and luxury foodstuffs. And this is based on the assumption that current national income remains unchanged. Even with the existence of import pricing, as he says, continuous spectrums, grain and vegetable grading does, and will continue to exist. This allows the differentiation of luxury graded imports and daily necessities as per existing AVA quality parameters and management techniques. With regards to the Minister of Finance's questions as to how much should be dedicated to enforcing such discretionary taxing, I posit that we should simply allocate as much as is necessary for dedicated lads in the anti-corrupt practices units, in whom I must say I have complete and supreme confidence in. Their achievements speak for themselves. A few figures. In 2008, our perception index stood at 4th globally. In 2009, 3rd, and in 2010, we emerged as the very first in our detection of corruption and enforcement. Would I agree that such a bill would potentially cause opportunity for mismanagement? Certainly, but so would every other bill. Would I agree that an inordinate proliferation in compliance costs is necessary? Certainly not. And this is in line with current expenditures by our Corrupt Practices Investigation Bureau. Moreover, the Minister for Finance asserts that such large firms capitalizing would result in what he terms as fraud. Now, I assert in return that would this encompass large firms simply doing what they are meant to do, capitalizing on market opportunities as firms should? Should every operating firm be it large MNCs or a small neighborhood nasi lemak store called Hassan Rabbit I frequent, be subject to penal investigation as a result? Should the profit principle, the basis of the entire free market system, be simply cast aside simply because some large firms may benefit? Market dominance and not fraud, as he claims, is a problem here. And market dominance and manipulation and not fraud is what the state should endeavor to protect the market from. He also mentions the various export partners in the state, as he has mentioned, are evidence enough that market dominance has been prevented through market liberalization and the diversification of import sources. He mentions Japan, the US, Thailand, and Vietnam. Does this not ameliorate the issue of market dominance by reducing the divergence between the market price of grain and the marginal cost of firms? With regards to his last question, I will concede that enforcement and ostensible fraud would indeed reduce potential government expenditure and social transfers, but only so far as either the former or the latter truly do pose as much of a threat as the government would like to saber rattle. Once again, I'd like to reiterate my complete confidence and esteem in the work of our anti-corruption measures and implementations, and maintain, moreover, my firm conviction that such indirect government market interventions will create conditions for an equitable, efficient allocation of resources.
Thank you, Shadow Minister. Ms. Rachel Lim. If she's absent, someone can ask the question on her behalf.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. I would like to speak on behalf of Ms. Rachel Lim. To the Shadow Minister for Transport, whether the implementation of entitling polytechnic students to similar concessionary rates to junior colleges would lead to an increase in fares to balance off the difference. Secondly, what measures should be implemented to ensure this balance, as it will cost transport operators an additional 28 million Sing dollars per year if polytechnic students are given travel concessions. Thank you very much.
Shadow Minister for Transport.
I would like to thank the representative of the MP of Tampines North, which happens to be the Minister of Defence, for the question. And I would like to clarify that the implementation of concession rates does not necessarily lead to an increase in fares, as that is assuming that we are going to follow the current system of a duopoly. However, if the government were to nationalize the public transport industry, which is what the opposition is working towards, the government can definitely afford to subsidize it for the people, and given that it's not profit-orientated. Hence, this will actually solve the two problems as aforementioned. I would also like to take this opportunity to clarify that infrastructure costs are indirectly borne by the citizens through taxes, as the Shadow Minister has actually incorrectly pointed out earlier on. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity.
Thank you, Shadow Minister. The Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So I would like to ask the Shadow Minister for Home Affairs to specify which clauses in the Public Order Act, the Public Entertainments and Meetings Act, and the Miscellaneous Offences Public Order and Nuisance Act infringe upon the right of assembly, and if so, how? Thank you.
Shadow Minister for Home Affairs.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Prime Minister for the question. I'm surprised that the Prime Minister will pose this question to me. I thought that the Prime Minister, being the head of executive of our country, would know which clauses infringe on our right to assembly. And of course, being the head of the legislative, thank you. Being the head of the legislative, I'm sure that he will know which clauses, but for the benefit of the Prime Minister, I have printed with me the 3 acts which I have cited in my manifesto that we wish to amend. Okay, before anything else, we need to know what a right is. According to Oxford Dictionary Online, which I accessed yesterday, I'm sure it's pretty true still now. A right is defined as a moral or legal entitlement to have or do something. As such, a right of assembly would be entitlement to gather in groups of 2 or more persons to express their pleasure or displeasure over a cause or event. So with this in mind, I'll point to the House to sections in the Public Order Act, the Public Entertainment and Meeting Act, and the Miscellaneous Offences Public Order and Nuisance Act. Okay, first, in the Miscellaneous Offences Public Order and Nuisance Act, it is commendable that Section 5 regarding assemblies and processions has been repealed in 2009. However, still within the Act are Section 20 and 21 of riotous, disorderly, or indecent behavior and willful trespass on property. These two sections contains words which have very wide scope for interpretation. Second, in the Public Entertainment and Meeting Act, according to the schedule, public entertainment will include any act, performance of music, singing, dancing, and the like, other than ad hoc performance in areas accessible to the public. As such, if you have maybe planned in advance, okay, advance is the keyword, to perform a cover to maybe a Lady Gaga song to a group of friends at a void deck, as your house is a bit too small because HDB is getting smaller these days, you need a permit, okay? Unless, according to the Act, you can prove that the place you're going to perform act, in this case the void deck, is not accessible to the public. Third, in the Public Order Act, assembly is defined to refer to a gathering or meeting, whether or not comprising any lecture, talk, address, debate, or discussion of persons, the purpose or one of the purpose of which is to demonstrate support for or opposition to the views of action of any person, groups of persons, or any government, to publicize a cause or campaign, to mark or commemorate any event, and includes a demonstration by a person alone for any such purpose referred to in paragraph A, B, and C. So going by the Public Order Act, okay, Mr. Speaker, commemorating the death of your pet at your void deck alone is considered an assembly. Okay, make no mistake, the House. And thus requiring a permit application submitted to the Commissioner of Police, failing which you can appeal to the Minister, who can impose any particular condition on the permit. So, Mr. Speaker, I suppose, according to the Act, conditions could include things like using the previous example of commemorating the death of your pet, not crying loudly during the commemoration event. Furthermore, under Section 35 and 36, the so-called move-on order allows police officers to communicate to any person or group of persons who is, in the police officer's opinion, is about to commit an offense. So the offense has not been committed, but is in the police officer's opinion to commit an offense, to leave the place and not return within a period of time. So if you remember the Lady Gaga cover just now, so let's say if a group of friends, not related to the Lady Gaga performance, is gathered to maybe discuss about where to have dinner, maybe at Funan Mall or maybe Raffles City. But it is in the officer's opinion that this group of friends are going to attend the Lady Gaga song performance that you are going to perform to your friend, which is illegal since you haven't applied for a permit. The officer can ask the group of friends, which is totally not related, to move on and not return to maybe City Hall for a period no longer than 24 hours. So, Mr. Speaker, so this is just one of the few sections and clauses that I, as requested by the head of the executive and the legislative, the Prime Minister, that I would like to highlight to the House. Okay, make no mistake, ladies and gentlemen, that this section requires more deliberation on the extent of restriction we would like to impose on our Constitution. The Constitution of the Republic of Singapore, Section 14, explicitly guarantees the right of assembly to all citizens of Singapore. Yet this House has passed numerous bills to curtail this right. As my colleague, the Honourable Member of Parliament for Choa Chu Kang constituency has rightly pointed out to me, when you require a permit to do something, it is no longer a right, but a privilege, as your desire to perform an activity now requires the consent of some other people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Shadow Minister for Home Affairs.